The email hit my inbox at 5:41 a.m., subject line, compensation realignment, immediate effect. I was on my third cup of burnt break room coffee, standing under the tail wing of a gutted A321 with a grease gun in one hand and 3 apprentices circling me like nervous pigeons. I thumbed open the message, expecting a flight rotation update. 67%. My pay got slashed 67% overnight. No warning, no meeting, just an auto-generated email signed by HR and approved by someone named Conrad Briggs. I didn't even blink. My body just locked, like my joints couldn't decide whether to fight or collapse. One of the techs, Mason, barely 20 and fresh out of trade school, was still fiddling with the left engine panel, waiting on my go-ahead. I forced out, "Go to torque setting B. We'll recheck after coffee." He nodded and ducked under the wing. I didn't move. My hand gripped the tablet so tight the corner dug into my palm. Then the hangar doors slammed open, and in came the bastard, Conrad Briggs. Tan blazer, no tie, dress shoes way too clean for an aircraft hangar. He moved like a man on stage, fast, loud, and way too damn proud of himself. Trailing behind him were 3 clipboard puppets from middle management, eyes glued to his mouth like he shat gold. "Good morning, team," he called out. "Exciting day, our biggest retrofit launch to date." Some scattered cheers, the kind people give when they don't know what they're cheering for. He climbed a steel platform like it was a TED Talk stage and clapped his hands. Today marks a new era, one of efficiency, optimization, and yes, realignment. I knew what was coming before he opened his mouth. I could smell it on his cologne-soaked speech. Some of our long-standing processes, and yes, personnel, have become obsolete. Legacy systems, think floppy disks, think dial-up. He looked right at me when he said that. No offense, Valerie. I didn't flinch. I didn't even breathe. Pay adjustments reflect value delivered, he went on, smiling like a man who'd never sweated through a 12-hour line check in February. It's not personal. It's evolution. Behind me, someone gave a little chuckle, nervous, forced. One of the new hires, maybe. The others just stared at their boots. Then came the kicker. "Obsolete hardware," he said, turning back to his clipboard crew, who laughed a little too loud. Mason leaned toward me, whispering under his breath, "Your credentials are still keyed into the mainframe. They can't run diagnostics without you." My eyes stayed locked on Conrad. Let him talk. Let him pose. I wasn't done yet. "Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" I stayed at my station until the noise died down and Conrad drifted off to tour the hangar like some damn show dog. My hands kept moving. Torque, check, recheck. But my brain was somewhere else, somewhere darker. You don't give 22 years to a job without losing pieces of yourself along the way. I missed my son's 6th birthday because a Gulfstream had a fuel relay glitch mid-flight, and I was the only one certified to troubleshoot the avionics. I watched him blow out candles over FaceTime in a break room with flickering lights. I still remember the cake, some store-bought Spider-Man thing my sister picked up last minute. I missed his high school graduation, too. The FAA sent a surprise audit the day before, and upper management strongly suggested I be on site. So I watched the live stream while rechecking rudder sensors with a flashlight in my mouth. And my mom? Jesus. She passed while I was stuck in Denver on a weekend shift. By the time I got home, the funeral was over and the casseroles were cold. My sister didn't even say hello when I walked in, just pointed to the urn on the shelf and asked why I didn't come home earlier. But I couldn't explain it, not in a way that would make it okay. Because planes don't care if it's your mom's funeral or your kid's graduation or your knees feel like gravel every morning. I was the one they called when things got tight, when the margin for error disappeared and someone needed to put their name on the line. 6 years ago, we nearly lost everything. A federal investigation slammed us after a leak exposed partial schematics of our new hybrid engine. A supplier accused us of intellectual theft, and lawyers swarmed like flies. Every system got locked down. Forensics started digging. They found the paper trail in my logs, not the stolen ones, the real ones. My diagnostic data, encrypted notes, and development memos showed the timeline, proved we'd done the work ourselves. I even had line-by-line diffs in the architecture to back it up. That audit trail saved the company from a lawsuit that could have buried it. And you know who stepped in front of the cameras? Conrad. It was one of his first big public appearances after joining the company. He stood there in a crisp gray suit full of that trademark smug and said, Leadership swiftly handled internal concerns and cooperated with authorities to ensure full compliance. Like he'd built the firewall himself. I stood off camera, arms crossed, while he soaked up every damn flashbulb. But here's the thing. You can rewrite a press release, but you can't rewrite code. My credentials, Winters.7412, are still tagged in every critical system. Every diagnostics package, every engine spec, every damn maintenance tree we built from scratch over the last decade. They needed me when it counted. They always did. But recognition, credit, a raise never came. Just a thank you in passing from one project manager and a $20 Dunkin' gift card from HR. Meanwhile, Conrad kept rising, not because he worked harder, because he knew how to float on other people's grind. My back was shot, my knees clicked like bad ball bearings. My right hand would cramp halfway through typing reports, and I still pulled 12-hour shifts. No glory, no spotlight, just steel toes and caffeine, and now they called me obsolete? Obsolete doesn't leave their body half broken holding this place together. Obsolete doesn't have their signature in the core firmware of every piece of hardware in that hangar. But I didn't speak up. Not then. Not yet. Because sometimes the only thing more dangerous than being ignored is being underestimated. The banners went up before noon. Next Gen, Retrofit Fleet, taking flight. In bold blue letters, strung over the main hangar bay. Long folding tables groaned with boxed sandwiches, coffee, and cheap company merch, foam stress planes, lanyards, keychains. They made sure to roll out every last contractor, every junior mechanic, and at least 2 investors with camera crews. Upper management strutted around in embroidered polos like it was a damn Super Bowl. I stood back behind the main diagnostic station, arms crossed, visor still hanging off my forehead. I hadn't touched the food. Conrad took the portable mic like he was headlining a Vegas showroom. Today's not just about flight, he boomed. It's about forward motion. It's about trimming the fat and streamlining for a smarter tomorrow. I felt eyes shift toward me before his even landed. We're leaving behind what doesn't serve the mission, resetting dead weight, and embracing lean, efficient leadership. His gaze pinned me, smug and slow like he was daring me to blink. Scattered claps broke out across the floor. Not real applause, just something to fill the space. A few heads dropped. One of the contractors rubbed the back of his neck and looked away. Conrad smiled wider. This rebuild is the first of its kind, and I'm proud to say it was only possible because of a leadership team willing to ask hard questions, to shake loose outdated systems, to challenge complacency. My jaw tightened. My left thumb pressed hard into my palm, deep enough to leave a mark. That's when I heard a throat clear from the back. It was a voice I didn't recognize right away. Older, sharp, used to being listened to. "Excuse me," he said. "Before we wrap, I'd like to say something." Heads turned. Conrad paused, mic still in hand. The man stepped forward, gray suit, silver FAA badge clipped to his belt. One of the visiting compliance officials from DC. "I reviewed the specs last night," he said. "Very impressive engineering. Seamless systems integration, clean diagnostic logic. I dug into the metadata out of habit. Every single revision, every spec header, tagged the same way." He turned to the crowd. "Credit where it's due. Valerie Winters built this." The air dropped 10 degrees. No one moved. A few clapped automatically, unsure if they should. One of the junior techs let out a breath like he'd been holding it since the banners went up. I didn't move. Didn't smile. Just locked eyes with Conrad. He chuckled into the mic. "Well, of course, a rebuild this ambitious takes a whole team. Valerie's legacy knowledge certainly helped, but strategy and execution are leadership functions." The FAA rep raised an eyebrow. "Right. Still, just wanted to make sure the name attached to the bones got mentioned." Conrad cleared his throat and motioned toward the catering table. "Let's enjoy the food. We've earned it." He stepped down fast, shoulders a little tighter. I stayed where I was. Didn't eat. Didn't gloat. I just watched him chew that moment. He swallowed it, but it didn't go down easy. I left before they cut the cake. Still hadn't said a word. Didn't need to. The damage was already done. Just not the kind they were expecting. Back home, my apartment smelled like cold metal and dryer sheets. No frame degrees on the walls, no trophies. Just 2 pairs of work boots by the door and a broken coffee maker that never made it to the trash. I locked the door, pulled the shades, and crossed the room to the safe tucked behind a rack of manuals. Old school, analog, no biometrics, just a dial and muscle memory. Inside sat one item, a black unmarked USB drive in a small plastic case. I grabbed it and walked straight to the back room, to the laptop I hadn't powered on in 3 years. No Wi-Fi card, no Bluetooth, no OS updates since 2018. It was exactly how I left it, dusty, slow, and deadly. Booting it up took nearly 5 minutes. I waited in silence, thumb pressed against the edge of the desk. The screen flickered to life with a bare-bones interface. Black background, white text. No icons, no desktop, just code. The folder was still there. Protocol Icehouse. I clicked it open. 6 years ago, right after the schematic leak scandal, I built it. Not out of paranoia, out of necessity. When you know your name will never make it into the credits, you create your own insurance. Inside the protocol, a folder labeled Spec Verification Logs. Every change request, every approved design revision, all signed digitally by me. Diagnostic histories, tracking performance gains directly tied to my rebuild structure. Chains of emails between me and 3 engineering leads, pushing back on cost-cutting proposals that would have jeopardized safety. A payroll memo, dated this morning, the one that confirmed my pay cut, on the same damn day they launched my designs in front of investors. I scrolled through it all again. It felt surgical, clean, not revenge, just proof. At the center was the trigger file, a timed release email batch set to hit 6 inbox categories: FAA regulators, union reps, investor oversight boards, 2 journalists I trusted, and the executive risk audit group buried inside our parent company. I double-clicked the file, the screen blinked, a prompt opened. Enter auth signature to initiate countdown. There was only one valid signature, mine, not typed, coded. It was the same one I'd registered during the federal audit 6 years ago, burned into every system that still ran diagnostics off my framework. I cracked my knuckles, typed in the key. Vio Winters, 7412, in GDS 147 Alpha. A short pause, then authentication accepted. Countdown initiated. T-08000. That was it. No alarms, no fanfare. Just cold confirmation across the screen and a quiet hum from the hard drive. I closed the laptop, unplugged it, slid it back into the bottom drawer beneath old turbine models and a tin of Allen keys I hadn't touched since 2016. Then I sat down in the kitchen with a warm beer and let the silence wrap around me. They wanted to treat me like a ghost? Fine. Let them find out what happens when a ghost starts talking. The next morning, I was in the control bay by 6:45. Lights dimmed, vents humming overhead, monitors flickering to life one by one. I took my usual seat at the back left terminal, logged in without a word, and kept my eyes forward. The retrofit fleet was lined up outside the hangar doors like a damn showroom. Fresh paint, polished chrome, sensor arrays glinting under floodlights. This was the live demo, the showpiece. Investors from 2 coasts tuned in to watch our modified birds run flawless diagnostics and simulated startup procedures. Cameras were mounted on every strut and stabilizer. At exactly 7 a.m., the broadcast started. Across the screens, internal systems lit up. Engine temps, fuel balances, pressurization, electrical reroutes, all running through the sequence I wrote 4 years ago. Everything worked perfectly. Conrad strolled in 10 minutes late with a tray of croissants and 2 large coffees like he'd just won a golf tournament. "Big day, people," he said, loud and theatrical. "This is what leadership and vision deliver. Years of trimming the fat, refocusing priorities. Excellence looks like this?" Nobody said anything. A couple of contractors gave him a weak smile and turned back to their screens. He dropped off pastries at every other desk, except mine. Didn't even glance at me. I kept my hands on the keyboard, tracking the telemetry streams. Coolant flow hit green across the fleet. Flap actuators synced up like clockwork. But the real show was already happening online. At 7:46, one of the interns, kid named Eli, shifted in his chair and half-whispered, "Whoa." He tapped at his phone, leaned over to his neighbor, then straightened up fast when Conrad passed behind him. I tilted my monitor slightly and pulled up the hangar Wi-Fi traffic. Not because I was snooping, because I already knew what he'd seen. A post on flightstackforum.net, timestamped 7:38. Title: "Wait, who's V. Winters?" It had a screen cap from the livestream feed. Bottom right corner of the spec overlay, frame 32. In gray font, almost invisible unless you looked close. Lead architect, V. Winters. The comments underneath were picking up fast. Wasn't she the head mechanic? I thought Briggs said this was all his ops team. Metadata doesn't lie. A second post followed by 755. Bigger breakdown. Side-by-side frames showing version control headers, digital sign-offs, and signature tags all traced to my user ID. The screenshots were pulled from a cache of internal training videos, ones I narrated years back. By 8:10, 2 more niche forums had reposted the link. One of them had already added a short blurb. Quiet powerhouse? Valerie Winters might be the actual mind behind the retrofit. No capital letters, no fireworks, just truth slipping out where it couldn't be scrubbed. Across the room, Conrad clapped someone on the back and said, "See? No glitches, just discipline and leadership." I didn't say a word, just watched the analytics feed tick upward. The planes flew fine, the code did its job, and the truth started to spread, one comment thread at a time. By mid-morning, the air inside the hangar felt heavier. Nobody said my name out loud, but I felt it trailing behind me like jet wash. People moved slower. Keystrokes were quieter. Conversations died the second I walked near them. Eli avoided eye contact. So did Marcy. And she's usually the first to shove a donut in your face and ask about your weekend. Instead, she glanced at her phone like it had more answers than I ever did. At 10:12, I caught 2 line texts huddled by the fire panel, one whispering, "Google it, V. Winters, just search it." By 10:30, my phone buzzed 3 times in under a minute. I didn't recognize the numbers, Chicago, Atlanta, DC. I flipped it face down and kept working. Then the email hit. Subject, performance review, scheduling short, corporate, passive-aggressive. "Hi, Valerie, please confirm availability for a one-on-one performance review discussion with HR and ops leadership. Carla people and culture." That was their first swing, not a confrontation, just a leash tug. I didn't respond. Instead, I rolled my chair back, stretched my legs, and got up to grab a water bottle. Every set of eyes in the room twitched my way, then quickly pretended to look at their screens. Let 'em watch. I passed a desk near the south wall where 2 engineers sat frozen over the forum thread I already knew by heart. One of them clicked away fast when I walked behind them. Minutes later, my personal inbox pinged. "We had no idea. I'm sorry." This wasn't right. Different names, same guilt. I didn't answer any of them. They weren't the enemy, but they weren't the ones who ever stood up either. By noon, I'd heard the same phrase whispered 3 times near the break table. The board's seen it. That's all, not confirmed, just floated, but it hung in the air like something electric. Even the swagger in Conrad's walk had shifted. He came through once, phone to his ear, voice low and tight. Didn't hand out food, didn't crack jokes, didn't make eye contact with me or anyone else. I sat down, typed 3 lines of raw sensor data, and ran a system trace just to stay moving. Nobody asked me to, nobody thanked me, but every aircraft in that fleet was still humming because of code I wrote 6 years ago in a motel room in Spokane, wired on cold pizza and 0 sleep. I let the silence keep growing. Let the crew read. Let the doubt spread. Not my job to explain myself, not anymore. The dinner was held in some overpriced lounge space on the 3rd floor of the terminal, the kind usually reserved for private jet clients and corporate board meetings. White linen tables, stemmed glasses, jazz piped through speakers that looked like they'd never seen dust. I showed up because they expected me not to. No name tag, no greeting. Just a nod from the catering guy who held the door. The room buzzed with polite laughter and bad perfume. Executives circled in little pods, all of them doing that half-drunk lean-in thing. Champagne flutes clinked. People posed for photos under a banner that said, "Next-Gen Launch Success." Conrad held court near the center, gold tie and polished shoes, tossing out one-liners like candy. "Ignore the noise," he said, waving his hand like he was swatting a fly. "Blogger types with nothing better to do. We've already scrubbed the tags. Our IT team's solid." He raised his glass. "To lean systems and leaner teams." Applause. Someone laughed too loud. I stood near the far window, plastic cup of soda in one hand, back to the wall. The city lights blinked outside past the runways. No one noticed me, not even the interns. That was fine. I wasn't there to be noticed. At 8:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. One new message, Blake, IT lead. We couldn't remove the tag. Needs your credentials. He doesn't know. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I locked it and slid it back in my jacket. Across the room, Conrad was working his way through handshakes and back pats. He leaned into a VP's ear, said something that made her roll her eyes and giggle like a teenager. His confidence was real, at least to him. You could see it in the way he moved, in the way he planted one foot just slightly forward like he owned the floor. But the tag was still there, and he had no clue it was built to stay, not just embedded, replicated. Every time the specs were copied, saved, exported, or embedded in a report, the tag followed. Digital sent, permanent. He raised his glass again. We set a new bar, folks. This is what leadership gets you when you trim the dead wood and let real strategy take root. I took a sip of soda. It was warm. Didn't matter. Let him have his toast. Let him float for a few more hours. He didn't know what was coming in the morning. He didn't know that 8 o'clock wasn't just another shift change. He didn't know he was standing in the middle of his own farewell party, and the best part, he'd thrown it himself. The diner was 6 blocks from HQ, one of those spots that never closes. Linoleum floors, cracked vinyl booths, and a waitress who knew when to keep the coffee coming without asking questions. I picked the corner booth by the window, brought my old laptop with me in a plain black bag, set it on the table next to the syrup bottles. The waitress, Janice, I think, poured me a mug and nodded like she'd seen me before. She probably had. The screen glowed faintly. Countdown, 000729. I ordered toast and eggs, plain. No small talk. Outside, the early shift started rolling in. Maintenance guys, execs, HR faces I recognized but never talked to. A few IT folks I'd trained years ago walked by the diner window without seeing me. 00352. I buttered the toast, took a sip of coffee. No rush, no nerves. At exactly 8 a.m., the screen blinked once, then went black. Protocol executed. Emails launched, all of them. Pre-scheduled, authenticated, bundled with time-stamped attachments and headers no one could fake. First batch hit FAA regional headquarters. Second batch went to union legal teams, then compliance boards, shareholder advisory committees. The 2 journalists I'd been following for years, one in Seattle, one in Jersey, all at once, all clean. I didn't open a single reply, didn't check the trackers. I opened the paper instead. Local section, something about airport noise complaints and a lost dog. Upstairs, inside the boardroom, the glass started cracking. Conrad walked in late, again, expecting to hold court like always. He came in talking loud, already annoyed by something he probably assumed was IT's fault. "What is this garbage?" he barked, holding up a tablet. "Is someone leaking internal data? We've got bloggers posting company IP like it's open source." Silence. Then a senior audit rep slid a printout across the table. "These aren't leaks. These are internal logs, official documents, engineering records dated from 6 years ago to last Friday, and every single one is tied to a signature that's not yours." Conrad scanned the page, laughed. "Okay, come on. This is staged. Someone spoofed it. This is some kind of sabotage, maybe a disgruntled ex-tech." Another voice cut in, quiet, clipped. Head of Investor Relations. "This memo's from yesterday. It shows your sign-off on a 70% payroll cut the same day you gave a public speech about rewarding performance." He blinked. "That's a coincidence. That's not even related to the..." The CFO leaned forward. "You approved a comp reduction for the architect of the rebuild on launch day, and then took credit for her work in a recorded address." The legal counsel flipped open her laptop. We traced the authorship chain, diagnostics, specifications, system layouts. The name V. Winters shows up in every revision log. You don't appear until final release. He looked around the table, searching for backup. Found none. "I'm telling you," he said, voice cracking now. "This is a coordinated hit job. It's political. Probably someone on the inside. Maybe even IT." The door clicked open again. One of the board members stepped back in, calm as ever, suit pressed, notepad under his arm. He didn't sit. "I sold off my shares this morning," he said flatly. "Everything tied to your department. I suggest the rest of you take a look at the filings before the phones start ringing off the hook." Someone behind him muttered, "Already have." Conrad's mouth opened like he was about to launch into another defense, But no one cared anymore. The room had turned. He wasn't at the head of anything now. He was just another liability on paper. I finished my toast. The waitress came by with the check. I paid in cash. Didn't look at my phone once. Didn't need to. The system was already in motion. By 10:30 a.m., I was back inside the hangar, tucked behind the storage cage with a maintenance binder clutched to my side. Didn't need it, just something to hold while everything played out. The air was thick with that kind of quiet that only shows up when something big's about to drop. And then it did. Two internal auditors flanked Conrad near the south stairwell. Suits, badges, zero emotion. They didn't put hands on him, didn't need to. The message was clear. He looked smaller than usual, still dressed sharp, same blazer from the night before. But his walk wasn't the same. Too fast, eyes darting. He tried to say something to the guy on his right, but the auditor just nodded once and kept walking. Every head on the hangar floor turned as he passed. No one laughed, no one spoke. One of the office admins froze mid-coffee pour and just stood there, holding the carafe like she forgot how gravity worked. The two apprentices I'd been training all week watched with mouths half open, like they were trying to piece together how the guy who ran everything yesterday was now being walked out like a temp with bad clearance. No exit speech, no farewell. Just hard footsteps echoing off concrete. He caught sight of me for a split second as he passed the cage. His mouth twitched like he wanted to say something. I didn't blink. Just stood there, binder in hand, watching. By the time they reached the main doors, one of the facilities guys was already unscrewing the nameplate off the wall. Conrad Briggs, Operations Director. Didn't take more than 30 seconds. Came off clean. I felt my phone buzz in my jacket. Pulled it out slow. One message. System notice. Primary engineer verified. Case closed. That was it. Plain. Simple. Enough. I stared at it for a beat. No smile, no sigh. Just this stillness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like a pressure valve finally let go. The noise of the hangar started creeping back in. People moving, machines humming, someone calling out for a socket wrench like the world had just gone back to normal. But it wasn't. Not really. Conrad was gone. And my name? It was right where it belonged. I walked out to the airfield. No one stopped me. No one needed to. The wind was strong enough to sting, but the sky was clean, blue and wide, like it was waiting for something to lift off. I stood just past the taxi line, boots planted in gravel and dust. The fleet sat polished and proud behind me, sensors blinking like they were breathing. I pulled out my phone and typed one line. It's over. I'm okay. Sent it to my son. Didn't say anything else. No summary, no backstory. He'd understand. There were no reporters waiting, no flashbulbs, no applause, just wind. And that was enough. I wasn't angry, not anymore. Anger takes energy, and I'd already burned through most of mine. This was something else. Not peace exactly, more like balance. Like something that had been tilted too far for too long finally clicked back into place. I turned back toward the building. The office was quiet when I walked in. Not empty, just still. People moved out of the way without a word. I went straight to my locker and started pulling my things. Wrench set, backup boots, the flight manual I kept marked with sticky notes. No rush. I took out the binder from under the bench, the one I hadn't opened since the retrofit build started. Inside were old notes, draft sketches, scraps of code scribbled in pen when the system was down. I slid one last page in there, my signature, clean, full name, bold. Then I closed it, walked it over to the main server room and tucked it right where it belonged, on the shelf next to the system's logbooks. Not hidden, not encrypted, just waiting. I didn't owe them another hour. Not after 22 years. And I sure as hell didn't owe them silence. But I left without slamming doors or making speeches. Just walked out into that wind again, one step at a time. I still had grease under my nails and a cracked phone screen in my pocket. But I had my name back. And this time, I made damn sure it stayed.